I need you to be honest with me because I am about to be honest with you right now. Every single person who has ever told me about their past life was a somebody, right? Like they were Cleopatra, they were a king, and they were a witch who was burned at the stake for her magical powers, or they were a tragic World War I pilot named like Edmund or something. So nobody, and I mean nobody, has looked me dead in the eye and said, "Yeah, I was a medieval peasant. I farmed turnips and had 11 children and died of a toothache at 31." Which is wild because statistically, that's who you were. Like, out of all the people out there and all the past lives you could have had, the peasant, that was me, that was you, that was all of us. And if reincarnation is real, the overwhelming odds are that your soul's greatest hit album was just turnips and a bad molar. So, if you haven't already guessed, today we are talking about past lives, and I'm doing the real research and then some, and then it gets weirder than you think. But then I'm also going to talk about the very boring reasons why your brain might be making it all up, a Korean Buddhist concept that's going to make some of you cry, and the question that I actually care about, which is not, were you here before? But why do you so badly want your past life to be Cleopatra? So let's get into it. Hello, hi, I'm Heather, and real quick, let's just pour one out for whoever you were in 1640, okay? You tried. But you're listening to Delusional Witch Juice. It's the show where I bring you the hidden history, the weird stories behind folklore, and mysteries of the metaphysics. And I provide you with enough research to be credible and honestly enough jokes to keep it from turning into some medieval haunted textbook. Okay. So I'll be your skeptical but emotionally available friend for the next 30 minutes or so. Okay. So here's the thing that I want you to hold on to for the whole episode because it's eventually where we're going to land. And it's, what if who you think you were says more about who you actually are than who you actually were? So let me say that one more time. What if who you think you were says more about you right now than who you think you actually were in a past life? So sit with that and we'll come back to it. But first, the numbers, because I'm a research girly and honestly, they surprised me. Okay, so full disclosure, I'm a believer. I think there is something to reincarnation. I also think you should keep one eyebrow up the whole time, even during this episode. And if you assume believing in reincarnation is kind of like a weird fringe, I carry crystals in my tote bag type thing, it's not, okay? Because Pew Research did this enormous 36 country study last year, 2025. Come to find out, in the US, 31% of Americans believe in reincarnation or some form of it. That's literally basically 1 in 3 of you. And so to me, that's not fringe. That's literally the person standing next to you in the Starbucks line. And globally, it tracks with religion in a way that actually makes sense because, and I'm going to say this carefully, reincarnation is not like some vibe, okay? It's a central load bearing teaching in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism that's thousands of years old. And the Pew research found that Buddhists and Hindus are more likely to believe in reincarnation. And actually, in Sri Lanka, 70% of those were Buddhists who believe in reincarnation. So here's the part where the online TikTok version of past lives is completely backwards, okay? So in those reincarnation traditions, all of that is tied to karma, and that's the goal. The whole spiritual project is to eventually stop, to get off the wheel. It's called moksha or nirvana, liberation. Basically, you don't want to come back in those religions, right? You want to graduate. You want to get off the riding bus. You only come back if you didn't fulfill your current life's purpose, okay? It's not, whereas in our Western civilization, people carrying around sage bundles, and let me tell you all about my past life version is I want to come back. I'm looking forward to coming back, but next time I hope I have higher cheekbones or something like that. That is not the same as this religion, okay? That's not even the same direction. One is a 2,500-year-old theology about a release from suffering, the material life, and one is literally hoping for a reincarnation glow up. So, as we go through this episode, I'm going to keep those two ideas very separate because flattening someone's actual face into who was I in a past life personality quiz is not something that I want this show to be about. So let's just make that clear. So I wanted to do an episode about past lives because I recently went to a pagan festival, okay? And I went to this past lives workshop where they didn't put you under hypnosis. It was basically like a visit your past life without hypnosis type thing. And basically we just sat there and meditated and daydreamed and told the practitioner whatever came to our mind. Anyway, I'm going down a different path. But so at this workshop, we did 3 sessions. We all shared what we saw or what our memories were or whatever. And I swear to God, this one girl literally described her past life as the plot line of Sound of Music. And she just said it so confidently. And for anyone who hasn't seen The Sound of Music, so there were people that were Gen Alpha there. There were some girlies there that were like in their early 20s. So they've probably, I don't know if they've seen Sound of Music or not, but they were like eating it up. But me and my friend who are millennials are sitting there and we're like, we've heard this story before. She was talking about being in the mountains, like being surrounded a bunch of kids, being married to a wealthy man, which goes back to the whole I was a somebody, I was Cleopatra thing. And it kept reoccurring in each of the sessions. So she basically just described the beginning, middle, end of Sound of Music. And this is why I'm skeptical, okay? Because that's belief right there. And true belief, people truly want to believe that was their past life, right? So there is a guy who tried to drag the whole belief of reincarnation into a whole medical school study thing, okay? And again, I just want to note that the purpose of this episode is not to try and debunk reincarnation or past lives. I'm just honestly curious what everybody thinks of it and where it came from. But anyway, so there's this man named Ian Stevenson, and the reason I can't fully dismiss that girl's story of her past life is because of this man. Because he was a psychiatrist, right? He wasn't a practitioner. He wasn't like some guy in a velvet cloak and part of a secret society. He was a psychiatrist. He was the chair of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. So he was respected, he was tenured, the works. And in 1967, he founded a research division at UVA, which is still there, by the way, and it's called the Division of Perceptual Studies. And he spent the next several decades doing one of the strangest research projects I've ever heard of. He documented over 2,500 cases of children who claim to remember a past life. Crazy. And the part that gets me is the method he used. He studied kids, right? But he specifically studied the little ones, like 2 and 3 years old, because his reasoning was like any age under 5 or basically a toddler, they haven't had enough historical fiction to make this shit up, right? They've never seen The Sound of Music yet, or if they have, they don't remember it. They don't have, like, all these years of influence to be able to make up a story that's so detailed about someone else's life. So these kids would start to describe a life. They would a name, a town, how they died, and then Stevenson would literally go back and fact check. He would interview their families, he would track down whether or not a person by that name actually existed in that town, and whether or not the way they died was the same way as the kid described. It's pretty crazy. And then there's the whole birthmark thing, which gets even crazier. So some of these children that he studied had birthmarks or birth defects that matched the wounds of the deceased person they were claiming to be. And it could have been, like, a mark where a bullet supposedly hit, or a birthmark of a slash from a sword or something that they had on their leg from battle. I don't know, but he cataloged all these stories, right? And he put them all in his most famous book called 20 Cases of Suggestive Reincarnation, which I highly recommend. I have not finished it, but I like it so far. But his successor, Dr. Jim Tucker, still runs this work today, by the way. And he mostly looks at American cases. And there's one specifically, James Linginger, who was this little boy who had an incredibly specific memory of being a World War II pilot, okay? And it's considered one of the strongest cases of reincarnation on record. Now, I need you to notice the word suggestive in Stevenson's book, because Stevenson himself never said that these were proof, right? He said that these cases suggest something that we can't explain. And from an intellectual standpoint or view, I love that, honestly, because it's about to all get demolished, and he saw that coming. So this is where I have to put on my librarian glasses and become a skeptic and ruin it all for you all. So, explanation number 1 behind this whole reincarnation thing, and it honestly has a great name. It's called cryptomnesia. And basically, it's hidden memory. It's your brain absorbing something like a novel you read, a movie that you saw, like I described earlier with that girl at the workshop, or a story your grandpa told you, and you forget you ever encountered it. And then years later, it resurfaces and it feels like your own original memory. So the past life part is real. It's just a novel that you don't remember reading, or a movie you don't remember watching. Number 2, hypnosis does not unlock memory, and this is a common misconception, and actually manufactures it. And this is a big one, guys, because research shows that memories created under hypnosis are basically indistinguishable from real memories, and they're frequently more vivid. And if the hypnotist asks you leading questions like, what were you wearing? What year is it? How did you die? This will obviously help you generate an answer, right? And your brain will fill in the blanks and file all of that underneath the true folder, okay? And then science-based medicine actually straight up calls this type of past life regression therapy encouraging fantasies. So, if that doesn't tell you something, then there you go. And then number 3, and this one is one that should all give us the ick, okay? Because it's the single best predictor of whether someone reports a past life memory is whether or not they already believed in reincarnation, which is not how evidence is supposed to work. Evidence isn't supposed to only show up for the people that are already expecting it. It's literally like me already knowing the murder weapon is a knife and then going into the murder scene and being like, "Oh, look, a knife." That's not how it works. And the classic case of this, and this is one that everybody cites, is the Bertie Murphy case from the 1950s. This was a woman under hypnosis that becomes a 19th century Irish woman, and she gives tons of detail. It's a huge sensation. Everybody's writing articles about it. Then investigators do a little more digging, and they actually found out that Birdie's, her past life, that life lines up surprisingly well with the woman's own Irish American childhood, and which includes growing up next to an Irish woman named Birdie. And like when she was under hypnosis, it's like she's just forgotten all that. So, to be fair, even that debunking has been argued over, and stronger cases like the little boy who thought he was a World War II pilot have skeptics like Michael Studis, and he claims that the timeline got tidied up after the fact, and that's why her past life under hypnosis was actual evidence of reincarnation. But anyway, so where does that leave us? And honestly, like most of these topics that I look into and do a ton of research into, it puts us in the most annoying spot possible, right? Because both things are true. The cases of reincarnation or past lives under hypnosis are genuinely documented. They are real medical studies. But then the boring explanations that I just described are like sufficient evidence also. So nobody in this story, nobody is totally clean, right? Not the super believers, not the skeptics. There's no real answer, right? So that's cool. But this is exactly why I kind of want to reframe the question. So there's an actual movie from 2023 called Past Lives. And it's one that, from reviews I've read, it's one that everybody absolutely loved and cried about when they saw it in the theater. But basically, it's a concept. There's a concept in the movie, and it's called Inyan, which is a Korean concept rooted in Buddhism. And it's the idea that the connection between two people in the present is fate built up across several different timelines or lifetimes, past lifetimes, basically. And the way the film explains it is if two strangers even just brush up a pass like against each other by passing on the street, like sleeves barely touching, that's Inyan. That's a thread from a past life. And for two people to actually make contact or get married, that takes 8,000 years of Inyan and across 8,000 lifetimes of brushing up against each other. Listen, I cannot prove a single word of that. There's no evidence out there for that. I cannot prove that you've met somebody in a past life before, but I'll tell you what that idea does and whether or not it's real or not. It takes the person or people that you see every day, whether that's your best friend, your partner, the guy at the gas station that you have like a weird rapport with, and it says, "This isn't random. You guys have been finding each other for a very long time." And the part that makes it emotional is like for people who are in relationships or married, was it meant to be? Have we always been together in past lives? But maybe that's just a very touchy-feely story that we tell each other, but just the story part is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in that sentence because stories are literally how humans have always made love feel survivable. So this could be with friendships too. So I have this one friend that, and I'm sure everyone has had a situation like this, but I have this one friend that the moment I met her, we were literally tight, okay? We instantly knew that we would be best friends, and we were, like, the exact same person. We just became it's like that whole twin flame thing. We just instantly clicked, and it literally felt like I've known her for a long time, and people, when they see us together, are, like, shocked to find out that we've known each other less than 3 years. People think that we've known each other since kindergarten or something. And actually, it surprises me the number of things I don't know about her that I feel like I should know, and vice versa. I get surprised when she's like, "Oh, wait, I didn't know that about you." And I'm like, "That's crazy. I feel like I should have told you that before." But so that's just an example of Inyan from this movie, Past Lives. Were we best friends in a past life? Have we actually known each other for longer than we have in this current life? Who knows? Okay, let's move on to something more fun because I know some of you have already had your birth chart open since the beginning of this podcast. And I always have to tie a little bit of astrology into it. So there's this whole branch of astrology, evolutionary astrology actually, that reads your chart as a past life map. And I'll give you a cheat sheet type framework, not fact, okay? So, your South Node is supposedly the stuff that your soul has already mastered, like gifts and patterns that you've carried in from another life. So, it's giving child prodigy, right? This kid's 3 and already incredible at piano or something like that. And then your 12th house is the unconscious vault where past life material allegedly hides. So, stuff like your memories from your past life that surface when planets go into retrograde, which is what I'm about to get into next. So, when a planet goes into retrograde, those are sometimes read as energy you're revisiting or unfinished business, basically. So, there's even also this whole astro narrative that when Uranus moves into Gemini, past life themes come roaring back, which actually that already happened in spring earlier this year, but maybe next year. Maybe next year you can visit that. But here's your homework, okay? So go and look up your South Node sign, and not so you can find out if you were like some Persian prince or Cleopatra or something. You weren't. So sorry to burst your bubble. But because the story that it suggests might tell you something about what you're drawn to now and who you are now, which conveniently is exactly where we're landing in this whole episode. So here's where I've ended up. The question of who were you in a past life is fun, but it's like a dead end because we can't answer it because we don't know. And the people who claim that they can answer it probably can't either. But the better question is, like, one I actually can't stop thinking about is why that life? Why does the version of you want to feel like they were Cleopatra and not some peasant farming turnips. And so let me just say that again. Why does the current version of you want your past life to be a somebody? And that will say more about you than the question of who were you in a past life. Because whatever you reach for, like the healer, the king, the warrior, the tragic romantic, the one who was like wronged and wants revenge, that's not random either. That's a clue about who you are right now and what you wish you had permission to be. So that's the DM I want from you all. Tell me, when you imagine your past life, what's the story you reach for? And be honest about what that says about you right now. I'll go through them if I get any, and I'll read them on the next episode. You can find me at Delusional Witch Juice on TikTok and Instagram. I will put the links in the show notes. But next week, I think I'm going to go back to basics and maybe get into witch archetypes. I don't know. We'll see if that happens. But until then, be nice to your barista because you maybe have known them for 8,000 years.